My name is Serena, and I finally read a John Green novel. This feels like quite the accomplishment because I'm 31 years old and John Green has been making books since I was a child, but I just never got into them. I bought A Fault in Our Stars when I was in high school and it just sat on my bookshelf and then I gave it away. So I don't know what it was. Something just made me, like, I got over it. I didn't want to read it. And so I gave it away. But I finally read one of his books and now we're here to talk about it. Today's video, welcome to the Book to Movie Club. In today's video, we are discussing Turtles All the Way Down. And I have so many thoughts that I've been trying to put into words. I wrote a few of them down and hopefully some more come to me because everything's just in my brain and I want to talk about it. This video was actually requested in the comments of my previous video, so thank you very much. I can't remember your name, but thank you for recommending this. I was actually planning on doing this video, but your recommendation kind of pushed it up the list a little faster. And so I love when people like ask me to do a video, because sometimes I'm like, do people actually want to hear this? And if she is the only one that watches this video, that is going to be good enough for me. If you want me to make any specific book to movie or TV show comparison videos, let me know and I will be happy to do so if it's good. So yeah, let's get into Turtles All the Way Down. Turtles All the Way Down is a YA contemporary fiction written by John Green. And if you are a millennial like myself or just a lover of YouTube, then obviously you know who John Green is. I actually came across a video by Uncarly talking about John Green's impact, for lack of a better phrase. It specifically is talking about him on Tumblr at like the height of Tumblr. And also goes into detail about some of his other books and adaptations. And so I highly recommend checking out that video. It was very entertaining. Today we're just talking about the one, but I feel like John Green doesn't need an introduction because he is so iconic on YouTube. But if you aren't aware, Turtles All the Way Down is John Green's fifth solo novel. He also has co-written, I think, 2 other novels. And this is the third one to be, no, fourth book. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. To be adapted into a film or series. His debut novel was Looking for Alaska, which was published in 2005. And Hulu adapted it into, I believe, a miniseries in 2019. Paper Towns was published in 2008 and was adapted into a film in 2015. And then The Fault in Our Stars was published in 2012 and was adapted into a film in 2014 and was also adapted, Bollywood did their thing in 2020 and adapted it into a Hindu film. So that's interesting. I actually want to watch that. That makes me want to read and watch both versions of A Fault in Our Stars or The Fault in Our Stars. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. So the title of this book, I always love when a book has an interesting title because I want to do the research. And the title does come up in the novel. It explains itself. But Turtles All the Way Down, I will describe it as this theory that flat earthers use. And I don't know if it's a joke. It's kind of based on a myth. And this myth has been around since the 1500s, apparently. But in the book, I'll get more into it. But it tells the story of how people believe that Earth is on the back of a turtle, and that turtle is on the back of another turtle, and it's turtles all the way down. And so that theory is essentially describing the problem of infinite regress is what I saw online when I tried to do some research about it. So yeah, that's where the title comes from. Now let's talk about the book. Turtles All the Way Down debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in the category of young adult hardcover. It sat at #1 for 15 weeks and then remained on the bestseller list for 62 weeks, which is a long time. Quite the accomplishment. This was, again, his 5th novel, so he's had a lot of hype around him, and what I've heard have been great books as well. So it makes complete sense that his 5th novel would have debuted at number 1. The book itself is about Asa Holmes, who I believe is a 17-year-old high schooler who has been diagnosed or is experiencing OCD. Now, in the book, it doesn't say specifically that she has been diagnosed with OCD, but as you are reading about her experience, it's pretty clear that it is OCD, and in interviews, the author, John Green, talks about Asa having OCD. I'm sorry, somebody's doing yard work, unfortunately. So Asa is in high school trying to manage her symptoms and plan for her future when a local billionaire goes missing. The police announce a reward of $100,000 to anyone who can give any clues to lead to finding this missing billionaire who's wanted for like fraud or something. Asa and her best friend decide to do their best Sherlock Holmes so they can get this money to pay for college. Along the way, Asa reconnects with a childhood friend who kind of pushes her out of her comfort zone and brings her anxiety to new heights. I have mixed feelings about this book. All of them are positive, but it's like this book is sad. I felt like it was sad, but it was also a bit hopeful. In an interview, John Green described this book as a detective story where the plot is sidelined by the person's inability to be a detective because they're consumed by their own thoughts. Asa's anxiety is so intense throughout this book that it does get in the way of not only solving this mystery, but also being able to build relationships, as well as, this comes up more in the movie, but the idea of living independently in adulthood. The anxiety that she experiences is so distracting in her life from day to day that she often can't participate in conversations that are happening right in front of her, and is missing out on a lot of life because she's constantly trying to cope. John Green has OCD himself and described writing this book and the process of it as writing a love letter to his teenage self. Like, this is what he wished he could have read when he was a teenager. And I think this is really important. I'm gonna keep saying that because it is. Because the way that mental health is depicted in the book and in the movie, and by mental health I mean the main character's relationship with her therapist, the pursuit of bettering her mental health, was like, so it felt so true. I work in mental health. I'm a licensed therapist, and I think it can be really hard to feel normal while also pursuing something that is supposed to help you feel more normal. We all hate the word normal in this field, but when you know that something isn't right internally and you're prescribed medication, it gives this feeling of, why can't I be enough without this? And I think that is explored extremely well in this book, and you can see it really well in the movie also. I love when therapy just feels right. Like, sometimes you'll watch therapy on TV shows and it's like, at least for me being a therapist, I'm like, this is so stupid. But in this book and in this movie, it just felt really true, and I loved that. Something John Green also spoke about in an interview was the importance of showing two sides of an individual's experience with mental health. One being their individual experience and their internal experience, as well as the experience of the people around them trying to support the person who is experiencing mental health issues. Now, in the book, Asa's best friend, whose name I can't remember, it writes fan fiction around Star Wars. And in this fan fiction, Asa inspires a character. And some of the wording that's used in this fan fiction makes Asa feel really bad about herself. She feels like a burden. She feels like she makes things harder for the people in this story that her best friend has written. And this brings up a conversation between the two of them that does turn into a fight or an argument, a disagreement. But being able to have those conversations with people in your life is so important. I think people, when they're experiencing mental health, can often feel like a burden. I'm sorry, this is not a PSA. but people can feel like a burden. And it's important for the people who are supporting them to be able to express how they feel with love. I think it's so important. Like, if you are the type of person who can't support someone through their mental health, that's one conversation. But when you want to show up, that doesn't take away from how exhausting it can be to show up every day. And so I really appreciated seeing that conversation in this book, and it being between two teenagers just felt so important to me. I think I loved this book. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I think I loved it. So when I started reading this, I was like, ooh, mental health and mystery. I'm intrigued. I'm dialed in. There is a little bit of romance, but it's not like, there's no spice whatsoever. The romance in this book, the building of a dating relationship in this book, is used as a vehicle to demonstrate how OCD and anxiety interferes with what we might think is like the natural progression of someone's life. Dating, generally speaking, is a part of growing up. But when you have a mental health issue like OCD or anxiety, it can be hard to engage in that stage of life, which the book demonstrates extremely well. Towards the end of the book, Aza is having a conversation with herself about her future. She's questioning if she'll be able to have a romantic relationship. She's questioning if she'll be able to have a family and have children, and how her mental health will impact those things. Reading that part of the book made me really sad. It felt slightly hopeful, and I think it felt more hopeful in the movie, which we'll talk more about. But in the book, it felt like she was trying to get to a point of accepting that things won't be normal. Things in her life won't be the same as what they look like in other people's lives. And I wish I would have reread that section before this video just to get a better feeling of if it was coming from a hopeful place. Because after that, I felt sad. But all in all, at the end of reading this book, I thought it was good. Let me not. I'm like defending this book. It is a really good book. I give it a 4 out of 5 only because I don't really like YA that much. But this was a beautiful story. It was well written. And I would recommend it to anyone who is interested in reading it. The movie was adapted by HBO, and so let's talk a little bit more about that. The movie, Turtles All the Way Down, was directed by Hannah Marks. The screenplay was co-written by Elizabeth Berger and Isaac Aptaker, and starring Isabella Merced, who was the younger sister. I think she played the younger sister in Father of the Bride, which is also on HBO, and I really enjoyed it. And she played the title role of Dora the Explorer in the Dora live action movie, which now I kind of want to watch because I really like Isabella. Along with Isabella, this film is starring Felix Mallard, who plays Davis and has a really deep voice and is 26, playing what I assume is a 17-year-old. And Cree Cicino, I have no idea how to pronounce her last name, forgive me, who plays Aza's best friend, Daisy. Wait, I was so distracted talking about Davis's deep voice that I forgot to mention Judy Reyes. Once I saw Judy Reyes was going to be playing Aza's mom in this movie, I was like, this is going to be a great film. I think Judy Reyes is such a talented actor. I grew up watching Scrubs, and she starred in that. And now when I see her in anything, I'm obsessed, obviously. And Debbie Ryan makes an appearance. Debbie Ryan makes an appearance and of course does the... I mean, she didn't do the whole thing, but it felt like she was there just to do that. Because, like, why is Debbie Ryan here? Anyway, back to the video. Before this movie was made, John Green said that he never thought that this book could have been adapted into the movie. There's so much internal dialogue and so much about the main character's internal experience that comes up in this book that he couldn't picture it being done well in a film. And then the director, Hannah Marks, presented a pitch to him and he was like, this is it. She did it. And so the movie was made. One way, like, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this movie. One way that the character's OCD presents itself is through this kind of fixation of how her cells are working in her body and the potential for infection and all sorts of bad things to happen. So in the movie, they have these visuals of cells doing what cells do, and the sound engineering that's used during this part when the character is like going internal and having these thought spirals and experiencing what she's experiencing, there's this sound that happens and this visual pops up. And I also think it's done really well. I think when a lot of a book is an internal monologue, I also am questioning how they're going to do it in the movie. And obviously, Hannah is a professional. She knows what she's doing, and she did it well. The movie follows the exact same storyline as the book, with Asa and her best friend trying to solve this mystery so that they can get money for college. When Asa reconnects with her childhood friend, Davis, I can't remember his name, this grown man pops onto the screen with the deepest voice I have ever heard. And I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. He was casted for his looks, which Hollywood loves to do, because no part of me believed that he was in high school. In the book, they go to different high schools, but they're both high school students. In the movie, it never talks about him being in school, but because she's a teenager, I'm going to assume he's also a teenager. And this is important because they have a little ditch day. She skips school and they take a flight to Chicago to visit a university, which is in a different state from where they live. I think they live in Indiana, and they take a flight to Chicago to visit a university. If he is over the age of 18, that would be illegal. So I'm going to assume he's supposed to be a teenager as well. His family has money, takes the family jet. But his voice is just so deep. I just had to laugh when he first started talking, because I was like, this is ridiculous. One other change that comes up in the movie, which this is such a small thing, but it felt significant in the book, and so I wanted to talk about it. Asa drives her dad's old car, and in the book it emphasizes that the tape player is broken and it only can play the B-side of Missy Elliott's album. Oh man, what album is it? So Addictive. When watching the movie, instead of Missy Elliott, we hear Sorry Miss Jackson, and I'm not sure why. I feel like both songs are you know, that album, the Missy Elliott album and the song Sorry Miss Jackson, I'm assuming come from a similar time period. And so it's like, it's not because kids would recognize Sorry Miss Jackson over a Missy Elliott song, especially because she was at the Super Bowl and the kids thought she was a new artist when she performed at the Super Bowl a few years ago. So I wish I could just email the producers and be like, why did y'all do this? But yeah, that is another change. And I just wish it could have been Missy Elliott. But anyway, really insignificant, but it made me wonder. One change that I did really love, I could have taken it either way, but this conversation in the book, the character towards the end has with herself, as I mentioned before, about her future. These, it's not reflections because it wasn't in the past, but these thoughts about what her future could look like is a conversation that she has with her best friend in the movie. And I think it was so beautifully done because it's emphasizing the importance of having support as you're going through these things. Her best friend is talking about how she'll find love, she'll be able to have a family, she will have all the things in life that she wants, but it won't come easy. And it's okay that it won't come easy because she is going to be surrounded by so much love and support that she'll be able to get through it. And even thinking, it's been making me want to cry. Like, it is so beautifully written. I love that part so much. Friends are so important. That's all I have to say. As I said about the book, the movie also does a great job of depicting what therapy can look like. One part in particular, Asa kind of questions, like, if I'm normal, if I'm good enough the way that I am, why do I have to take these medications to try and be better? And I think that is it's such a hard position to be in as a therapist when questions like that come up. I've never experienced that myself, but when you're working with young people specifically who are having these kind of questions, like who are still trying to understand their mental health, or even anyone who is recently diagnosed with something like this, it's hard to grasp an understanding of what's going on. And our brains are so illogical. But being able to have those conversations with your therapist, who aren't always going to have the right answer, but are there to support you. Not a PSA for therapy, but maybe go to therapy. I don't know. Anyway, loved the movie, loved the book. I'm sure I'll have more thoughts. Even as I'm editing this video, I'm going to want to talk more. And so hopefully those conversations can happen in the comments. Now we get to the question of which is better. And this is one of those times where I feel like the book and the movie just go hand in hand. There weren't a lot of changes from the source material, which I love. I know sometimes like it's necessary. In this, it wasn't. And so I'm glad things stayed the same. And I think you should read and watch both versions of Turtles All the Way Down. So if you don't, let me know in the comments why. And if you do, let me know in the comments what you think. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.